Welcome to the Heart of Dad podcast. Heart of Dad is a podcast for entrepreneurs who are passionate about their families and business and looking to find more clarity, more balance and more alignment in all areas of their life. Come and join the community at heartofdad.com or on Facebook at groups/Heart of Dad. Welcome to this week's episode of Heart of Dad, and we've reached the end of season 1, released the first 12 episodes, and I thought I'd just take a few moments to reflect on what's gone on before starting to release season 2, which is also in the bag and ready to go, and I've got some great episodes that I'm going to be sharing with you over the coming weeks. So I started Heart of Dad really because of a conversation I was having with myself about what it meant to be a father and a business owner, and finding the intersection of those two things quite difficult at times. As a business owner, I was really passionate and committed and dedicated to making my business a success, to grow it as best I can, to serve my clients. And it's a passion. It really is a passion. And as a dad, I really wanted to, I suppose, find myself as present as I can with my son and my family, to be there as best as I can. And I found myself often thinking about my business when I was with my son, and thinking about my son when I was with my business, and not really finding a place in between the two that was working for me. And I imagine that there were other dads having similar sorts of conversations with themselves, or maybe with their friends, perhaps setting themselves up with a lot of pressure to be a certain way, perhaps not being able to get real because, you know, there's a bit of taboo saying to say that actually you're finding this difficult, that you find that intersection of your family life and your work life difficult. But I know from my conversations with friends and colleagues in the past that it's real. It's real for many men and for women too, of course. But I decided for this conversation to focus mainly on men. So I had 12 amazing conversations in these first 12 weeks of the podcast, and it brought up such a lot of rich insights and learning for me. And I think from people who've been listening, I've had some amazing feedback. And I suppose, you know, what comes out is that everybody I spoke to really wants to make the most of their business or their career. I mean, it's a given. It's obvious in a sense. But at the same time, they're really mindful and sometimes worried, or have had the experience of perhaps taking their eye off the ball with their children, with their family life, and finding themselves really caught up in the world of work that they're creating. Some people I've spoken to have made that division either through their experience of being parented by a dad who really made sure he did show up, or through their own painful stories, or through insight and revelation, or feedback from partners and children have made changes. And I suppose, you know, that's one thing that I've really seen in this conversation, is that intentionality makes a big difference. And quite a few of the dads who've been on the show have really modelled that in their intention to create the life that they want. So rather than being carried along by the tide of events and behaviours and patterns, they've made an intention to show up differently in their lives. And I thought that was really powerful and beautiful. And I also had questions about how sustainable it was, because I know that when I've made an intention to show up in a particular way, to have a particular type of experience, I've struggled to maintain it at times. I've perhaps been the dad I wanted to be, for a few days or weeks even, and then that drifts away. Or I wanted to show up in my business as I truly wanted, which is probably easier than being a dad, if I'm honest. And then find that slipping away too. I really felt touched when I was listening to other dads speak about how much wisdom there is in the world, how much wisdom people carry within them. It's a truism, particularly now because I work as a coach, that everybody has the answers they need within them. They have everything they need within them. And I think that really was borne out in the conversations I've had in season 1, where so many pearls of wisdom have been shared about lots of different topics, but I think top of the list, looking after yourself. The cliche of putting on your oxygen mask before you put on anybody else's. And taking time, making sure that you do connect as you want to with yourself first and foremost, before trying to connect with others. That really came out powerfully. The other big topic that we talked about a lot in all the podcasts was this myth of balance. I've been asking the question really knowing that it's actually a kind of like a false question to ask. I've been asking people like, what does balance look like to you between work and family life? And of course, most people are saying, well, there's no such thing as a static definition of balance. And I think that really rings true for me as well. That there is a pendulum that swings, or a fulcrum on which you're balancing, and some of the time you're spending more time with your energy in work, and sometimes you're spending more time with your energy in family, and you're having to recalibrate that all the time depending on the various demands, because there are times when your family needs you more and there are times when your business needs you more. But where we haven't gone so much, I suppose, which is maybe a theme for future episodes, is like, well, what about what you need? What happens when you really dive deeply into what you need as a man, as a dad, as a business owner, and how you then calibrate that against what your partner needs, what your children need, what your business needs. I don't think it's always easy. One idea that really struck me was one that Tim Jameson shared on in one of the early episodes, in episode 3, about how work often gets the first fruits of your energy and family get the last fruits of your energy. And that really rang true with me from my experience of being a child, but also how I've been as a dad with my work. How sometimes all my energy, particularly in showing up as a coach and being there for people, can then lead me to feel like I'll have less of that energy for home time. So that was a really powerful reflection for me, at least. Another big topic has been around guilt, and I've had a very mixed audience in this first season. I've had a lot of people who are coaches, but quite a few business owners, some who are working from the same understanding as I am as a coach, which is the 3 principles. Some know nothing about it. And those people who are more steeped in the 3 principles have some insights about what our feelings are telling us about, and perhaps are less, how can I put it, tricked by guilt. They're less seduced by it. But it's been an interesting topic because that idea of guilt is one that pulls us into behaviours, perhaps. Behaviours that might serve us and our children, our partners, but maybe they don't. The other major topic that's been very alive in the podcast has been around anger. And, I felt to an extent it's been a bit of a taboo subject. I think, for dads to really talk about how they relate to their own anger and how their anger gets played out in their relationships and with their kids. And when we've dug into it, I think those dads who've been able to get really honest have been able to say, well, yeah, of course anger is part of the dynamic at times, when boundaries feel crossed or frustrations boil up, or that it seems like our needs can't be met, or we find ourselves in situations that feel difficult or trapping, then anger comes out in those situations. So I've been really glad that topic has been quite courageously taken apart and looked at with some willingness to be introspective and real amongst the dads who've taken part in the podcast. because I think it's kind of really the unspoken subject. Not that I'm condoning for a moment acting out on anger, but I am wanting to normalise it. I think normalise it for dads. As the season went on, I started asking people about their relationship with their own dads, and that has been a fascinating topic that's opened up in the podcasts, as we see how our relationships with our own fathers start to mould us as fathers too, either in taking what we think is positive and beneficial into our way of being in life, or as an active choice not to be that way. And not everybody who spoke had a lifelong relationship with their dads, and those who did had all expressed a changing relationship with their dads as they got older and as they came into fatherhood. And it's a fascinating topic, I think, to see what influence did your father have on you in your life, for good or bad. What directions did you take or not take as a result of input your dad had or didn't have in your life? Or if your dad was absent, what did that mean for you? How did it shape you? So I've really been listening out for those conversations about dads and what they mean to them. And we've had some incredibly touching stories as well, some which will really move you. And as we move into season 2, I think we've got some absolute crackers coming up in terms of relationships with dad. So bringing this end of season episode to an end, really I want to thank from the bottom of my heart the dads who have turned up and shared on the podcast in this season, and those who are coming up in season 2, because it's been an immense privilege and pleasure to dive into stories that dads are willing to share about their lives, to find that common ground, as well as finding the nuggets of wisdom that have been aplenty in what everybody's shared. And my vision for this project in the longer term is to go beyond the podcast, is to start really supporting dads at whatever stage they are, to be the best version of themselves, to really achieve what they want in their work life, their career life, while still being present, showing up for their kids, making the most of that time they have, which is a fleeting moment in our lives, really. So I want to celebrate all the dads who've been on, thanking you for taking the time to share your story so honestly and courageously. It's been really beautiful hanging out with everybody who's taken part, and the diversity has been absolutely fantastic. There's that commonality, but everybody has their unique story and a unique way of telling it. So thank you to everybody who's listened to the podcast. If you're listening to this episode, please like and share the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. Let other people know. And if you'd like to be a guest, or somebody who'd like to be a guest, please drop me a line at hello@heartofdad.com and join us in our Facebook community. I'm really committed to growing that over the next months and years, and that's at www.facebook.com/groups/heartofdad. You'll be very welcome to join us. And if you have topics to suggest, I'd love to hear from you as well. If you've got directions you think we could explore that I haven't explored and would be of interest to you, I'd love you to let me know. And the longer term vision is to really create this movement that will support dads wherever they are in the world, at whatever stage they are, to be the best version of themselves that they can be. So thanks for joining me, and I'm really looking forward to sharing season 2 with you in the coming weeks.